Hello, good morning, and welcome to the latest in this series of Intralogistics Connected webinars. I'm John Thornton, editor of Cover Media, and host for today's session, which is sponsored and presented by Westgate, a leading designer and supplier of partitions, screens, curtains, and doors for factories and warehouses. Today's webinar will see Westgate use its 40+ years experience and expertise in this vital area to help you, the viewer, better understand how to overcome the complexities of partitioning large spaces. Providing insight into this topic today is Westgate's sector manager for new business manager Cliff Kane and his colleague Roy Burt, who is a strategic business development manager at Westgate. Together, Cliff and Roy will explain how to reduce downtime, how to remain adaptable for future developments, how to overcome the constraints of existing layouts, and how to achieve quick, clean installations to any height and width required. The session will also explore project examples to showcase how several recognized businesses in the warehouse sector are benefiting from Westgate's unique FlexiWall solution, which delivers applications for dust, temperature, and cross-contamination control. Before we begin, I'd like to encourage viewers to ask questions throughout the presentation via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I'll pose as many of these questions as possible to Cliff and Roy in the time available following the presentation. Also, a recording of this webinar will be made available to view on demand from this afternoon via logisticsmanager.com. And with that, I'll now hand over to Roy to start the presentation section of this webinar.
Good morning all, and thank you, John. Thank you everybody for joining this Westgate webinar. As it's already been introduced, but my name is Roy Burt, the Business Development Manager for Westgate Global, and today we aim to give you an overview of how we can help partition and segregate warehouses in today's market. As no doubt everyone is aware, with the current pandemic, there has been a boom in online retailing, which has caused a shortage of warehouses, along with technology and automation advancements. All these factors have impacted the logistic and warehouse sector. So therefore, we aim to show you how our partitioning systems can help to manage and segregate your warehouses more effectively. Of course, we will be looking at how to segregate partition space quickly, cost effectively, and minimum of disruption. These being requests we commonly receive. And look at applications we can also commonly provide solution for, such as cross-contamination, temperature, odor, and dust control. And with this ever-changing world, we are being asked to cater for welfare and safety of the employees through the use of retrofit and temporary partitioning. Therefore, with all this in mind, we would just like to go over these key points throughout the presentation in more detail: how to overcome mess and disruption, overcome the permanence of traditional methods, i.e. plasterboard and breeze block walls, how to achieve quick installation even in tall buildings, work with existing layouts, improving corporate imagery, and lastly, we would just like to go over some of our projects that we have completed for organizations such as Amazon and DHL. So with this, I would like to pass over to Cliff Kane to go over in more detail our partitioning solutions. So thank you.
Thank you, Roy. That's excellent. And thank you everyone for joining the webinar this morning. Today, we're going to talk about the FlexiWall partitioning. So why would you use a FlexiWall partition? Or more to the point, why would you not use a FlexiWall partition? Well, you might not use it in your lounge, I suppose, or somewhere. Interestingly enough, we did have an inquiry from one lady who asked if they could have a FlexiWall in their daughter's bedroom because they're doing an industrial theme. But anyway, we're talking about warehousing and logistics today, FlexiWalls in warehouses and factories alike. So yeah, FlexiWall. Why would you have a FlexiWall? It overcome mess and disruption, decrease in downtime when it's being installed because it goes up very quickly. It also, there's less storage space on site for the Flexi wall when it's been installed. You haven't got all the room it takes up with a traditional partition like steel or plasterboard. It's manufactured off site, so it speeds up everything from start to finish. So when we arrive to site, you've got the Flexi wall panels all ready made up, ready to be installed. And with that, it means that a Flexi wall, like you can see in the picture now on the presentation, is a 60-meter wide by 20-meter high to the haunch. Would take approximately a week to get that installed and into that position. Now, just briefly, we will go through this in more detail, but the Flexi wall is fixed up to the main portal beams where you can see at the top, and then it's hung down and tensioned to the floor and fixed to the sides and to the floor. So you get a very smart, tensioned, taut partition that is cleanly and quickly installed. So we're going to show you a short video clips just to show you how this is fixed at the top. So you've got an existing beam at the top there. Now that existing beam, if there's not one running along the line of the partition, we can put an extra steel work at the top, and we fix these caddy clips to the beam, and then an essek goes through. And now as I start the video, you will see that the eyelets in the Flexi wall will then be hooked through the esseks. We'll then drop those panels down. Now each panel is approximately 3 or 4 meters wide. It's manufactured to suit whatever the requirement is, so that it's of ease of manufacture. We'll then joint the panels together, and this is done by a V-overlap joint, and that gives a very dust tight seal, and you've got a cable that drops down to join all the panels together, which creates a very good dust tight and airtight seal. The cable is taken all the way down from the top all the way down to the bottom, and then it's fastened at the bottom. And then last of all, we need to fix it to the floor and to the sides. So we've got a batten in the bottom of the Flexi wall. You'll then screw or bolt it straight down to the concrete floor, and that will then be tensioned down to the floor to close up that gap. And you've got a very neat sealed partition. So, overcoming performance of traditional methods. A partition like this is very adaptable for future changes in the warehouse or factory. As you can see in this left-hand photo, you'll see the original Flexi wall was an enclosure approximately 20 meters long, and it needed to be extended. So you can see on the right-hand picture, it's been extended approximately another 20 meters. A door has also been added in at a later stage. And then you've also got the frame, this goalpost frame arrangement here, which is used then to put any kind of doorway you want onto the Flexi wall system. So you can have a fast action door, you could have a crash door, PVC strip door, a sliding curtain, the various different access options. You can also see in this picture a corner post there just to create and form the corner. You've got on here, you can see it's fixed up to the purlin beams running across there. And if you ever did want to relocate this partition, you can take it down off one of the purlins and you can relocate it in a different area of the factory. So yeah, very adaptable, very clean and quick to put up and to change in the future. So beauty of quick installation, tall buildings, it doesn't matter what height the building is. And we've done buildings up to 28 meters and we haven't come across a job that has been too tall yet. So you've got these partitions that are suspended down, and one of the beauties of it is you can get it between the racking. So if you've got a back-to-back racking in a warehouse, you can install it to the beam at the top, drop it down between the racking, and without even removing the racks themselves. You would need to remove some of the horizontals, but generally speaking, you wouldn't have to remove the whole racking system. Now, of course, if that was a plasterboard or clad wall, you would certainly struggle to be able to do that. So it can be fitted in very tight spaces. This photo also shows a couple of different door options. You've got a fast action door on the one in the blue, and a pedestrian door next to it, and the crash barriers in front. Now, one of the reasons you may want to put crash barriers in front is just to protect the bottom section. Now it is very robust. It's a fully reinforced PVC fabric partition. And if a forklift knocks against it, it's got a bit of give in it, so it wouldn't dent or puncture like a plasterboard wall could. However, if you do damage it, you can actually just replace the bottom section, that blue section at the bottom, without having to replace the full height of the flexible partition. So it's a unique feature. You can just cut it off at the point where it's got the joint between the red and the white flexi-wall. The goalpost frames support the door. You can either have one which goes all the way to the ceiling, like the one in the right, or you can have a self-supporting one which has got these stabilizers at the bottom. You can see the yellow stabilizers at the bottom. So moving on to penetrations. Now these two photos show a lot of penetrations going through the flexi-wall partition. Now, we can get a very good seal around the penetrations. We'd often try and aim to get the where the penetration is, to put a joint near it, and then we can seal up around that. And we often do a double layer of fabric around where the pipe or the duct goes through. Another key advantage with the flexi-wall system, like this screen here, this is a temporary screen around a mezzanine floor that was being built in a Sainsbury's warehouse. And this screen was put up for like 18 months while the mezzanine was being built and the floor was being piled. But at the same time, they still needed to get access into the area and bring in large pieces of equipment. So they're able to fold this curtain back, the screen back, get the equipment through, and then pull it back again and fix it to that beam again. So yeah, very flexible. It's got some very unique advantages. So moving on to the next slide, it shows a few more pictures up closer of where we've gone around the penetrations. You've got a cable trays with lots of cables, and you can get a very good seal. Now, I would like to mention at this point, we can guarantee a 99% seal, which is a very good seal as opposed to other systems. I'll show you this video next, which you can see all the penetrations going through there and the V-overlap join going next to the duct. Another thing I'd like to point out on this video is you've got an existing beam where the flexi-wall is fixed to, running along that, and there you've got a corner post there, and then you've got some extra support steel work that has been installed where there's not a beam to fix to. So you're not limited as to where you can put the flexible partition in the warehouse or factory. It can go anywhere with the use of the extra support steel. We will be coming on to quite a few case studies at the end where this has been used, where it's been for temperature control, dust control, or whatever, tainting, noise control, whatever the requirement in the warehouse. We'll show you a few case studies where it's been applied. Now, just to show on these slides here, we've got a couple of here showing logos, and so how we can improve the corporate image in your warehouse or factory. As you can see, this is Aston Martin logo on the one on the right. Another key feature about this one is if you look at the bottom of that warehouse, the whole partition has been rolled up so that they can build an office pod down the bottom there. Then once that office pod was complete, we dropped it back down again and secured it to the floor, tensioned it to the floor again. This partition on the left is a different type of fabric. Now, I haven't covered off the fabrics yet. You've got two main types of fabrics. You've got a PVC fabric and you've got a glass cloth fabric. Now, the PVC fabric, which is the one on the right, you've got a lot more color. You can get it in white, blues, blacks, whatever color it might be you want, and we can mix the colors together. Now, that is a fire retardant fabric. So if you put a match to that, it would melt straight away. But if you took the match away, it would self-extinguish. So it wouldn't all go up in flames. So it's self-extinguishing. It meets the spread of flame. But The second fabric, the one on the left, is the grey partition. That is a glass cloth fabric which can come in the grey or the white. And if you put a match to the glass cloth, I won't show you right now, but if you put a match to it, it physically won't burn, and it's got up to 90-minute integrity. So it'll stay intact for up to 90 minutes. So it's a non-combustible glass cloth fabric. It gets used a lot for insurance purposes where there's high value goods being stored on one side. People like FM Global specified that these flexibles were glass cloth in certain circumstances. They're not full fire compartment walls because they're not insulated, but they are a non-combustible fabric wall. So very similar to what you'd get for fire breaks up in the roof space. Now this photo also shows we're on a fast action door and a pedestrian door next to it. This video just shows the different colours and how you can improve the corporate image. Now, a lot of warehouses and factories like the open space and the white, the light reflects off the white fabric, but at the same time, it's good to have a colour at the bottom. It breaks it up a bit. It also, where the bottom tends to get all the dirts and the knocks and everything. So the blue in the end of the video there, you can see hides all the dirt and the knocks. So yeah, that's a very key feature with all the different colours for the corporate images. Now moving on, I've covered off Flexi Wall, which is Flexi Wall is the brand name for permanent fabric partitions. Flexi Screen is the brand name for temporary partitions. Now these temporary screens, they are similar to the same fabric in many circumstances. They're just designed so that they're there temporarily and more for the purpose of what they're designed. Now, for example, the picture on the right shows an external screen. It's going to have high wind loads on it. So you've got these straps that go across horizontally and the wind load straps. This also has got a gap at the bottom because the company, as they're building the warehouse, needed to do the concreting up and then let the concrete flow underneath the screen. And then they'd move that screen further down the warehouse. So it facilitated the phased handover or the phased work within that warehouse. So you can see that you can roll the partition up to the next windbreak, if you like, to facilitate the phased work going on in that warehouse. Now, the one on the left, you've got a live warehouse on the opposite side of that partition. And on this side, you can see the building site creating a lot of dust. There again, it's a dust screen to protect the live warehouse on the other side. Now, this photo also shows a translucent fabric which lets the light through. So you've got solid colours like the one on the right, which don't let light through. You've got translucent colours which do let the light through. So hopefully that explains the Flexi screen as opposed to the Flexi Wall. Now, a lot of these Flexi screens are up for 18 months, but many of them up only just for a few weeks. And at the end of the time, a lot of them get reused for something else, or they'll be recycled back to original to be used as a different plastic product in the future. I'm now going to hand over to Roy, who's going to tell us about the hoardfast partitioning. So Roy, please take over.
No, thank you, Cliff. That was excellent. So hello all again. I'm just going to give you, if it's okay, a quick brief overview of the hoardfast range. Our hoardfast range is our low-level partitioning system, which is a modular system and therefore provides a very quick installation. This system is often used in the warehouse situation to increase on-site employee welfare facilities, i.e. at the moment being used a lot for testing areas. But traditionally, we have used it a lot for temporary offices, as you can see in the right-hand photo there, but canteens or simply to segregate areas for ongoing work. So you might have the production line going one side and works going on the other, and it's simply segregating the areas. often as well, at the moment, we're making small panels to help social distancing, to keep employees or personnel working on production lines, but keeping them socially distanced. So as you can see from these photos, we can also offer vision panels and doors within the walls. And I'd just like today to go over to some of our key benefits of this system. Our holdfast system is a PVC panel and it can be quickly cleaned. We've used a lot of this out of interest on the Nightingale hospitals to segregate the wards and the beds. It's an ideal panel where you can clean it very quickly. If you can imagine with the curtains on the wards, you have to take the curtain down, wash them, and then reinstall them. With a PVC panel, it's just a simple, nice, quick clean down, and you can reuse. It can be erected very, very quickly. It's got a male and female connector, and it's slotted together, and you can do a run very quickly. As you can imagine in the old jumbo stud walls or partitions where you put OSB board up or plasterboard, you often spend a day cleaning after you've put the wall up, but with this PVC panel, it's erected very quickly, so therefore it's an absolutely ideal low-level partition. I'd just like to quickly play a video. If you could move on to the video. This video shows how it's actually put together. As I said, it's a male and female connector. You could use a small rubber hammer, you just join them together. It's actually got U-channels, as you can see there, at the top and the bottom and the side. That completes the product, makes it very neat and tidy, but also gives it that added extra bit of strength. There's 3 ways of making this stand. We've got the equal foot mullion, which so therefore it can stand alone. Otherwise, we can actually fix it to the ground, or we do have a weighted option. So whichever your need and your requirements, if you don't feel it, you can bolt to the floor. We've got a weighted option, or we've got an equal foot mullion. The other thing, just to add in, we have also got a T-section and corner pieces. So this hoarding can go any length and any direction. The beauty of hoardfast system, it can be dismantled and reused. So if you've got a phased handover project, it's absolutely ideal for it. You can set up in the first phase down to one section of the warehouse, but as you get to the second phase, you can dismantle it, take it up to the end of the factory and reuse it over against the traditional methods where you'd have had to dismantle the partition, put it in the skip, then go and buy some new materials. So this brings me on to the fact that the hoardfast system can be hired or you can purchase. If we hire it, it comes in length to height of 2.2 meters or 2.7 meters. But if you purchase it, we can cut it to your requirements. It does actually come up to 5 meters in length. However, we do, after 3 meters, we would like to recommend you fix to the ceiling or of some kind to give it the strength. So with that, hopefully that's given you the overview of the hoardfast system. But of course, if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll get to the question and answers and we'll try and answer any question you have. So with that, I'd like to pass back to Cliff, who will go over our case studies and projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Yeah, just to reiterate that, please get your questions ready to put in the chat box, put them in. I'm going to go through some case studies now on the flexible partitions, where they've been used, how they can be used. So this may jog a few questions that you have. So yeah, the more the merrier, bring them in. So yeah, this one, DHL in Northampton, this was for segregating cans, which was a food product being stored, and it needed to be segregated from the rest of the warehouse. It needed to have a good dust tight seal. You can also see in this partition that we've got a curtain. So rather than a fast action door, a more cost-effective solution was provided. So you can just slide the curtain from to one side and then you can pull it back again once you're through. I mean, like I say, that could be a fast action door or PVC strip door, whatever requirement. It also shows, as mentioned before, how it was installed between the racks, going down the back of the racking there. So moving on to Great Bear distribution. they've used a lot of these partitions for tainting, and temperature control. So if you've got a food product like a mint chocolate, or you've got some pharmaceutical perfumes or something that gives off different odors and it needs to be segregated from other products being stored in the warehouse, the flexible partition is very good for that because it doesn't let the odor sink into the product. And also for temperature control. Now you may say, where it's not an insulated wall, so how is it good for temperature? But the majority of temperature loss in a warehouse is through draft and heat loss that way, rather than actually through the thickness of the partition. So if you can get a good seal, you do create a very good area to be able to control temperature. Now, things like pharmaceutical being stored between 15 and 25 degrees, it's a perfect application for, if like the rest of the warehouse is ambient. If it is a freezer, yeah, it'd be a completely different story. So the flexible wouldn't be suitable for like a freezer, although having said that, if it was two different temperatures within the freezer, minus 40 and minus 35, then yes, it would be suitable for that. It can go down to temperatures of minus 40, but just remember that some heat would pass through the partition. So this Great Bear one, that is also approved by FM Global for insurance because of the high value goods. And then moving on with temperature control, this is an example of a warehouse at Tilbury where it is one long warehouse which is divided up into 3 chambers. So the flexible partition was used to divide between 3 chambers, the first chamber being -2, the second chamber being +2, and then the third chamber being +7. So where you've got the temperature glides like that, the flexible is perfect for that environment. And you can see in this photo is partially been installed at this point, but the goalpost frame with the PVC strip door there as well, and then going around the racking system as well. Then moving on to areas that it could be potentially difficult to install plasterboard or clad systems. So this was on the edge of a mezzanine. This was purely for, there's a high value goods stored on the mezzanine, and this was to stop pigeons and other things coming in through the loading bay doors and going up onto the mezzanine. And it is a very cost-effective way of dividing the area, segregate this the area where the high value goods were with the flexible. So it's fixed up to the main beam and then fixed to the mezzanine floor at the bottom. There is a handrail just behind that as well. So you've got your handrail for the pedestrian safety on the other side of the flexible. This also shows various ways you can use the colours to smarten up the warehouse. So you can even add a third colour or fourth colour if you want into it. So sometimes we've done like you've got a blue and a red stripe, or however you want to do it to match the aesthetics of the building. And then lastly, this Great Bear one again. So using flexible externally, it is, because it's PVC and it's very robust, it is excellent for keeping weather and wind out. So where you've got an existing canopy, so this was an existing canopy which is open on 3 sides. The main building was on the 4th side, where trucks would unload. They needed extra storage space. So we enclosed this canopy, as you can see, around the 3 sides, and that kept the goods dry, free from the wind and the rain, and just made a very cost-effective way of getting extra storage space. So you can see in this photo, you've also got the wind load straps again, vertically in this instant rather than horizontally. You've got a curtain there so that you can draw closed when required, and the crash barriers and pedestrian doors. Just another thing which I didn't cover off on the fast action doors, there are 2 types of fast action doors. You've got the roll door and the fold door. The fold door is the one which has got wind bars in it, several wind bars, and it folds up like a Roman blind, whereas the roll doors have just got the one bar or the bar on the bottom, and they roll up. They're a lot quicker, but they go up 2.5 meters a second as opposed to 1 meter a second, but they're more internal. The roll doors are more for internal use or small external doors. So hopefully that clarifies that. And you can also get various different activation for those doors. So that comes on to our last slide, where we'd welcome any questions and answers. So we'll hand back to John on the panel, who's going to ask us a few questions.
Absolutely. Cliff, Roy, thank you very much for that in-depth and technical presentation. As you say, it leads us nicely into the Q&A section of the webinar. And I'm pleased to say that we do have a few questions for you both. Our first question comes from Andrew Shaw, who asks, do you have issues around wireless penetration of the walls?
So say that again, John, wireless.
Yeah, so Wi-Fi, do you have any issues around Wi-Fi penetration of the walls?
We've certainly not come across it yet. That's an interesting one. We've never experienced it before. So the answer on that is no.
Brilliant. Thanks, Claire.
Simple one.
Next question. How does the durability of Flexi Wall compare with solid walls in busy environments with forklift trucks working in close proximity?
Yeah, that's a very good question, John. It is very good for busy warehouses. Now, like any wall, if a forklift drives into it, you get these drivers. 24/7 warehouses are typical ones. 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, the forklift driver's feeling rather tired and accidentally misjudges and goes through takes his forks through the partition. You're going to damage whatever wall. Now, one of the great things with Flexi Wall is because it is tensioned, it has got some give in it. So when it brushes up against it, it has got some give, and will often, you see marks and places where it's bulged out and it hasn't torn or anything. Whereas a plasterboard wall or a steel clad wall would have dented. And then, if you've got to replace that, it's a lot more difficult to replace a sheet of cladding or whatever than a section of Flexi Wall. So going back into the presentation like I'd described before, you've got a row of eyelets that we put in at about just over 2 meters high. And what that facilitates is if you need to change the bottom panel, if a forklift driver does drive through it and punctures it badly, then you can cut that panel off and replace it with a new panel without having to take the whole section down. Now, if it's just a small tear, you can patch that up as well, just like a bicycle repair. You've got an adhesive, you've got some more fabric, and you can actually glue a patch on. So there's 2 ways you can repair it. The other thing is, of course, crash barriers. A lot of people, whether it's a plasterboard wall or a clad wall, would put a crash barrier in front of it, particularly in busy live. Or you can, as a more cost-effective way, rather than a crash barrier, you can actually put a piece of steel angle just on the bottom, just to keep the forklifts away from the wall. Is another common method. Hope that answers that okay.
It does. Thank you very much. Next question. What temperature range can Flexi Wall enclosures achieve?
It can do any temperature range in that sense, as long as you've got your HVAC system that would pump in enough cool or hot air. But generally speaking, because it's not an insulated wall like a fridge panel wall, you've got sort of 100 mil of rock wool, so you are going to get some temperature going through that partition. Now, when it definitely works very well in small temperature glides. So where you've got, I mentioned before, 15 to 25 degree pharmaceutical warehouse, and it's ambient on the other side. It could be anywhere between 10, 20 degrees the other side. So you've only got sort of 5, 10 degrees difference between the two. It works very well in that situation. And same with that NFT case study, you've got sort of 5 degrees difference between the chilled and the non-chilled or super chilled. So glides like 5 to 10 degrees, yeah, not an issue. Anything more, you're going to have to put more heating or cooling into the area. And then beyond that, you're going to be looking at a insulated wall, really.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What fire standards does Flexi Wall meet?
Yeah, we've got on our website the British standard that the Flexi Wall, so you've got 2 types, which I mentioned before, the PVC, which is a fire retardant, and that meets basically class 1 in short terms, and that will melt straight away in a fire, but it won't all go up. So it meets the thread of flame. But the glass cloth fabric, that meets class O, and that it will not burn. It physically won't burn for up to 90 minutes. And they've got the certification, and you'll find on our website the actual BS numbers that it approves to. And we can send an email to ourselves on the email there, and we can give any further detail and certification that's required on that.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
So yeah, 2 main things. Class 1 is for the PVC, and it's the same applies with the hoardfast that Roy was talking about. And the PVC is the class 1, and then the glass cloth is class O, and same with, we have a metal panel that you can use for the hoardfast where a class O requirement is needed. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cliff. We do have a few more questions. I'll just try and get through those now. Is clean installation aspect of Flexi Wall more important than ever, given the current situation that we find ourselves in with the pandemic?
It certainly has come up a lot more and more. It is being a PVC fabric, it is very cleanable and hygienic. It can be, there's a lot of detergents you can use to on the partition as well. There's 2 aspects, or a few aspects to that question, I suppose. One is it when you install it, it's clean to install, so you're not creating loads of dust, you're not creating loads of mess, like plasterboard dust or whatever else. And then the second side to it, of course, when it is actually installed, it is very cleanable. You can wipe it, pressure wash it, do what you want with it to keep it clean. And then also, thirdly, when you take it down again, you're not creating loads of dust again taking it down because of the nature of the product. And it can be recycled, of course, which is becoming more and more what we want to hear for keeping green. Mm-hmm. Hope that answers that one okay.
Absolutely, thank you. You touched on this a bit earlier, Cliff, but what kinds of access options can be integrated into Flexi Wall?
Yeah, so access options, you can put any kind of door in it as long as you've got a frame to be able to support that door. So as you mentioned, what I showed on some of the slides, you could see a steel goalpost frame. So you'd install a steel goalpost frame, whether it be 100 by 100 box section, that would be suitable enough to take, it could be a roller shutter door, could be a fast action door, sliding steel doors, you'll get, they're often used. So it's just like a steel panel that you can slide across, or the curtain. So now, one thing I hadn't covered off, I suppose, is Flexi Curtain. You've got your Flexi Wall, as I mentioned, was your permanent partitions. Flexi Screen is your temporary partitions. Flexi Curtain is if you've got it fixed on a track, so you can actually slide it open and close. And we do some pretty big ones sometimes in aircraft hangars. A typical area where a Flexi Curtain was used in a warehouse was if you've got, in Christmas time, turkeys being stored at +2 degrees, and they need to be kept separate from the rest of the warehouse just for a few months. we'd actually put a flexi curtain in that you can pull the curtain across the warehouse just for those few months when you need it. Going on from curtains, you've got PVC strip doors, very cost-effective way. So they're the thin strips of clear PVC that suspend down. Now they can get scratched easily, but we have got one which has got ribs in it, so that as the forklift goes through, it just scratches the rib rather than the main bit, so it keeps it clear and clean for longer. You can also do just a steel opening door. There's a lot of different access options.
Lovely, thank you. You mentioned earlier that the tallest flexi wall installed to date is 28 meters high. What's the maximum that it could go up to?
Yeah, there's we've not come across a building where we've had to say sorry, we can't do. Now we have done taller than 28 meters on the side of buildings for temporary screening. One of the things about flexi wall, you don't need any extra support. You don't need any extra steel posts to support it. Sometimes we would put posts in for whatever reason, or wind load straps. Particularly in the tall builds, you might want to be putting some wind load straps down if there's a wind loading on it. But there really is no restriction how high you can go. There's, as I say, most buildings come across, there very few are sort of 30 meters or more anyway. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
It does indeed. Cliff, Roy, that brings us to the end of this webinar. I'd just like to thank both of you for joining us this morning, and Westgate for sponsoring today's webinar, which will be available to view on demand from this afternoon via logisticsmanager.com, in case you'd like to refer back to the presentation or share it with a colleague. Before we go, I'd just like to make you aware that the next Intralogistics Connected webinar takes place at 2 p.m. on January 28th, which is this Thursday. It's sponsored by OW Robotics and Hick Robot, and it asks, how ready is the UK warehousing industry for the robot revolution? OWR's robotics business consultant, Greg Downey, and head of robotics, Joe Daft, will reveal all by providing a robotics ready verdict across a range of sectors to highlight where the opportunities lie. You can register for that now by visiting the webinar section of logisticsmanager.com or roboticsandinnovation.co.uk. We'd love for you to join us. Registration is also open for Intralogistics, the UK's premier intralogistics and materials handling exhibition, which takes place at the Ricoh Arena in Coventry on the 27th and 28th of May. Visit intralogistics.co.uk now to secure your place and discover the latest offerings to be showcased from over 150 of the leading intralogistics and materials handling equipment suppliers to the UK. That's it. Thank you all for attending today's session. I'm John Thornton, and I'll see you again at 2 p.m. on Thursday for the next Intralogistics Connected webinar. Thank you. Goodbye.